Human design is a system based on your exact time, date, and place of birth. And, at its simplest, it basically gives us our energetic DNA. The idea is that we all have a totally unique energetic blueprint. Human design has 2 billion different configurations. And so it basically just helps us understand kind of our own manual and how we're really designed to thrive. And so that goes into, how we're designed to make decisions, communicate, work within teams, and so much more. And it draws from a lot of different systems. So it incorporates pieces from astrology, from quantum physics, from the Kabbalah, the I Ching, the chakra system. It's all kind of like wrapped up into one master system. I think in terms of how it differs from manifestation, I think human design it actually can shed some light on how we're designed to best manifest and bring things to life, but it is kind of like our unique blueprint. Whereas manifestation feels more like kind of a practice. And then astrology, astrology is just a different system. I think that like they offer different levels of information, but I think that there's so many different tools out there. So I definitely encourage people to kind of go towards what resonates. But I think astrology, like human design, like offers super like specific, detailed, super tactical information. And I think what drew me to it is that it was like so practical. I think that like even though it comes from the stars, which is totally wild that we like get so much information from our exact time, date, and place of birth, it's actually so grounded in terms of like giving us stuff to do every day to come back into alignment with ourselves.
Yeah, I really like practical. And I don't know if that's just because like it's hard for me to grasp it otherwise. And while I'm a Gemini, so for astrology, like, sometimes you'll meet someone and they're like, "Oh, you're a Gemini." I'm like, "What does that mean?"
Yeah.
So I like the practical approach. So let's talk about the four types. What are the four types and how do you figure out what your type is?
Yeah. So if you want to look up your type now, actually, if you know your exact time, date, and place of birth, you can go to erinclairejones.com/lookup, Claire with an E. But there are a lot of sites online where you can look up your design. So you basically will enter that information and then get this crazy looking body graph. And so I'll just say it's not supposed to make sense to you. It's helpful to have somebody analyze it and explain it. But at the highest level in human design, there are 5 different types. So like I said, there are 2 billion different configurations, but obviously like there's a high level distinction. And so
Right,
we
you're not
have
going to mention all 2
manifesting.
billion.
What'd you say?
I said, right, you're not going to mention all 2 billion right now.
Yeah, yeah. There's no way. Yes. So we have manifesting generators, projectors, manifestors, and reflectors. And do you want like a line or two on each of them?
Yeah, that would be great.
Perfect. So the majority of the population are manifesting generators. And these are basically the people that really have the energy and the life force to kind of build and create and bring things to life. And the most important thing for both of these types is that they're really doing work that deeply satisfies them. They're kind of designed to wake up each morning like with a full tank of energy, use their energy in super satisfying ways, and then crash and wake up recharged. The difference between the two is that manifesting generators tend to move very quickly. They tend to thrive when they have their energy in a lot of things at once. And they're really just like designed to kind of multitask, but also be able to pivot from something as soon as they no longer have the energy for something. So some people might see that as scattered, but like for them, like that's actually the most important thing is that like they don't stay in something for too long. Which is, just a quick side note is that I think that often we make ourselves wrong for who we are and we make ourselves like wrong for our superpowers. And human design is so helpful because it just kind of gives us a language and a framework to understand our uniqueness and like the tools to step into it rather than run away from it.
Yeah.
And then we have projectors. Projectors are basically people that are here to kind of advise and lead and guide the process. They often make really good coaches or healers or managers or leaders. They don't have that same consistent access to energy as generators and manifesting generators, but they bring a totally different gift to the table. Like their gift is really in understanding people and what makes them tick and really understanding energy. But again, the key thing is that they really step into that gift because if they're brought into a company and expected to operate like a generator, they might not be that good at it. I can speak from experience. I'm a projector. I'm really terrible when I'm expected to operate like a generator. And then we have manifestors. I know you're a manifestor.
Mm-hmm.
And these are basically these very sort of powerful and impactful people that are really here to kind of initiate and get things started. They're really also not here to do all the work themselves, but honestly, like just to get the ball rolling. Often the most important thing for these people is that they have like freedom and autonomy and control. Like these people aren't here to really be told what to do or manage. And so it's really good for them to kind of do things on their own terms and in their own way. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, it definitely does. My one of my earlier jobs, I worked 8:30 to 5, and at 12 o'clock, if you didn't go to lunch, like someone would come in and be like, "Are you going to lunch today?" And so I just remember like I hated that. I hated like just the confines of like
Yes.
zero flexibility, and like I had no purpose, and I was just, I mean, it was a boring job to begin with, but it's interesting you say that because like as an entrepreneur, like I manage my time really well, and part of that is, and also I get told a lot like I'm very good at getting stuff done and like initiating things. And what I get told a lot is like, well, you just need to be a little bit patient. Things just don't work as quickly as you do. Or like, you get a lot done, but that doesn't mean everyone works that quickly. So it's really fascinating because like these are things that I always have been told in like a negative way too.
Right, and that's the craziest part is that often we're made wrong for these things. Like manifestors are about 9% of the population, and so they're a minority. And so often they're like caught up trying to operate like generators or manifesting generators and like don't feel the permission to kind of be as like powerful and initiating and like impactful as they are.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's so helpful, to kind of find a system like human design that just is like, no, wait, this is your magic. You got to do this, and then find people around you that can like support you and respect you and help you actually do it.
Right. Right.
But also manifestors, like they are very powerful. So sometimes they can be like a little bit threatening to the people around them because they're just like a little bit like, what is this like powerful for? So it is, they can be a little bit polarizing in that way sometimes. And then we have reflectors, and reflectors are about 1% of the population. So they're super unique. And these are basically these very magical beings that kind of take in everything in their environment and mirror it back. And so they tend to be, really good in companies when they like have the ear of the CEO and can kind of just like evaluate what's going on and like offer their reflections. They tend to just see things that other people miss. These people tend to be very sensitive to their environment. So the most important thing is that they're actually in environments that really feel correct to them. Because like the wild part of reflectors is that their identity is basically shifting all the time. Like over the course of a month, they're going to feel like a manifestor, like a projector, like a manifesting generator. And so they kind of need to just allow themselves to wake up and sort of pay attention to how they're feeling each day and allow it to be different depending on the environment and the people they're with.
Wow. I love this. I'm deep down the rabbit hole of this. I'm into it. So
Good.
so and I will. You're right. You guys, when you take this and you find out your chart, it is like kind of crazy looking. Like I'm looking at mine. I have no idea what any of this means other than it tells you your type. So after people look up their design and they get their body graph, how do they really make sense of it? Do they, do they work with someone like you? Is there tools and research? Like what do you do with this body graph basically?
I know it's really crazy looking. I think it's like I tell people to look up their human design like when I'm giving a talk at the beginning and then they're like, I'm sorry, what do I do with these?
Yeah.
So I think that you do need someone to translate it. There is a lot of information online. I think some of it's a little bit overwhelming because human design is like kind of like an endless well of information. There's so much. So I think it's really easiest to kind of work with somebody. Um, there are some good books out there. I have an offering that I can talk about at the end, which is like a 30-page blueprint on your design. So the intention of that is to kind of put things in very simple and practical terms so people like have something that they can just like take immediately and feel like it's really tactical. But yes, you kind of need to start analyzing or just like understanding the key pieces. I will say the most important pieces when you look up your design are your type and your strategy and your inner authority. So if you're going to look at anything, just pay attention to those three. The rest will like come into be helpful later, but those are the most important pieces to start with.
Yeah. And what I find interesting too about like the work that you do is having worked at a company before is that you are able to really apply this to a practical point of view. And I think that's ultimately, we're just trying to connect the dots between this thing that's, bringing in like the stars and some other stuff and
Yeah,
like,
totally.
okay, I have to talk to my boss today. So tell me what this means in that sense. So how do you make the courageous act to break your conditioning once we figure out what our design is? Because like I was giving my example and I do feel like oftentimes we're conditioned to sort of be a certain way or society or whatever it is. And then when you find out your type and you're like, no, this is who I am and I want to embrace it. Sometimes that does
Mm,
require to go against this quote unquote conditioning.
totally. So, I think that what's pretty cool about human design is that like it's not, when I tell a projector they're a projector, like it doesn't mean they have to operate like one. Like they could go out there and try to be like a manifestor or like a generator, but often it's just not going to feel as good. And they're probably not going to be as successful at it. And so I think what human design does is like it's not about like giving you all these tools to be like, okay, these are all the things you have to change, you have to become a different person. It's more just like giving people permission to be who they are. And there's often like an extraordinary sense of relief that comes with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think in general, my role is to give like people really empowering stories about themselves and just tools to step into it if they choose to, and I think that in terms of how to decondition, it's really like the small moments. I think that, like, for example, I'm a projector, and part of my strategy as a projector is basically wait to be recognized and invited in. And so I think that, like, in small ways, I'm like, okay, what are the relationships in which I feel the most invited in? What are the work opportunities? And like starting to funnel my energy into those things.
Yeah.
Or like my decision making is emotional. I need a lot more time when I make decisions. So like I think that there are small things that people can practice with in terms of the decisions they're making every single day and how they're choosing to spend their energy that is going to naturally bring them into alignment with their design and with themselves when they start to step into it. Another example of that would be like for generators and manifesting generators, it's all about honoring like what they feel the most lit up by and also like letting go of the things they feel the most drained by. So like at the end of every day being like, okay, what lit me up the most today and what was the most draining? And again, how can I funnel my energy into the things that are the most exciting? And I'll say one other key piece with the deconditioning is that in each of our design, they're kind of open centers. You'll see these white centers when you look your design up. And those are actually the areas in our design where we're the most vulnerable to kind of being taken off track. So once you kind of equip people with what those areas are for them, they can sort of be on the lookout to make sure that like those things aren't guiding their decision making and just be aware as to make sure they're kind of not getting taken off track in those areas.
That's really funny. On my chart, the white area that I have is mostly up by my brain. So I don't know what
Yes.
that's saying, but clearly my brain can be taken over. No.
Right.
So
And it means you're like it's super inspired and might have like a bajillion ideas, but like the shadow of that would be like losing focus, getting scattered, trying to
yes.
pursue all the things at once.
I always tell people, I'm like, look, I'm just trying to stay focused on this. Like,
Yes,
I love that
that's your
idea,
work.
but yeah, exactly. It's the hardest part for me.